Shibba-da-bow-bow-bow. I have no idea if this is working because it's my first time. What's up, everybody? I'm over here. So, today, what we're going to be doing is getting my Sarangicello all tuned up because the strings are floppy. And my computer is far enough away over here that I won't be doing any typing. So it's going to be real casual today. This is my first time ever trying to do any sort of live streaming. I don't even know the program I just used. I just pulled it up and tried to use it. So for all I know, nothing's happening right now and this isn't going anywhere. But I got to tune this up. This is a unique instrument, so I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. Or at least it's a unique setup, so I wanted to talk about it as I get it tuned up. And then I need to do some practicing. There's a bunch of tunes for the band Vardo that I'm in, which is originated by Chad Canfield. And we're going to be performing at Ringling Brewing Co in Baraboo, Wisconsin on Thursday. And it's going to be a little bit interesting because, you know, it's St. Paddy's Day, and we're going to be doing some of the more Celtic side of Chad's compositions that he's written for Vardo. But the group Vardo is usually sourcing inspiration and genre types from all over the world that are very specific to each performance. So it's a little bit different. It's usually kind of a hybrid, a mix or a cross between different traditional musics. So you'll hear that, but I'm just so out of practice right now with the pandemic especially. I was used to performing for nearly a decade leading up to the pandemic, performing over 100 gigs a year. And when you're doing 2 or 4 shows a week, depending on the week, and they're all unrelated shows, that's a lot of material that I had to practice each week. And it's kind of like this cycle of practice a whole bunch of material for that week, perform it all, and then forget it, and the next week learn a whole my mic is all getting floppy, just like my strings. Hopefully you can hear me okay. You know, like learn a whole catalog of music for a bunch of unrelated performances and forget it, because the next week it's a totally different band, or it's a totally different performance with all new music. So it's kind of grinding away at like that way. And now with the pandemic, there's no performances, at least for me. So suddenly I'm just completely out of my normal rhythm of constantly learning new music and practicing stuff. On top of that, I ended up having bruising both sides of my ribs, doing different things. The right side of my ribs, I bruised surfing for the first time. The ocean humbled me immediately once I stepped 2 feet into the water. It took me out and I landed, all my impact of my body landed right on my board. So that felt awesome. Especially since the rest of the time that you're surfing, you're on your ribs and keeping your back lifted up. So my back and ribs are super sore after that. My mic doesn't want to cooperate with me here. Hopefully I can get that to settle down. I want to get a different mic anyway. This is really a snare microphone that I'm trying to use like a lav mic. Again, it's my first time, folks, so I apologize here for any extra rustles and annoyances. Anywho, so Ann and I were trying to run across the entire airport of Charlotte from one end to the other in 5 minutes in order to catch our connecting flight. We landed in the airport about at least an hour behind schedule, if not 90 minutes delayed. And in the process of running from one end of the airport to the other, I had to try to do a cutback move to dodge some high school jabronis, some sports jabronis that were leisurely strolling with their carted luggage behind them. Came around a pillar. Suddenly there's 15 high school sports jabronis walking around, and I had to cut back to avoid them. And you know hiking boots? How they have those the hooks on the top of the boot for your laces, like the last two, instead of eyelets, it's like hooks. Well, one pair of laces from one boot hooked into the hooks of the other boot, and suddenly I was running full steam with essentially my shoe laces tied together, bump, 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 slammed to the floor. And you know, it's like one of those slams where you know what's about to happen, and so it kind of happens in slow motion a little bit, and you just kind of accept it on your way down. Well, that's what happened. So, slammed on my left side, my left elbow went right into my ribs, and I slid on my wrist. I slid for like 5 feet on the really hard, polished floor of the airport. I just went down, knocked the wind out of me, and I just laid there because my ribs and my back on the other side were already really hurting, because this was just like 3 days later. And then now my left side of my ribs were bruised. So it's been a full month since I've been able to play cello, because I've just been trying to take it easy and recover. I could barely, if I was on my back, I couldn't even roll over on my side. Getting up was super, super difficult. So I wasn't even going to try to sit down with the instrument and try to play, because it was already just in constant pain. All that to say, story time, that I'm way out of practice, and this thing is way out of tune. So let's tune it up, and I'll explain my setup as I go. So it's kind of like a little bit of a setup video. Hopefully nothing goes too wrong, because I'm living on dangerously. I do not have a replacement string for my top string, so if that snaps, we're screwed. So I don't know if I can get these are all gut strings. I don't know if I can get a replacement in time. Alright, so this is my Sarangicello, so I call it. It is not a special cello by any means. It is not a high quality instrument, but someday I would like to actually have a luthier properly make me the instrument that I dream of. But it's got a kind of old school style tailpiece, with no fine tuners. A bridge that I've modified a bunch of different times, and eventually what I want to have is drone strings, a whole set of drone strings, because I originally set this instrument up for playing North Indian classical music, and then it just ended up being the right instrument to play for Vardo, because oftentimes I didn't need to be in the low end. We already had the low end instruments, and the cello was being used for a lot of melody and harmony lines. So this instrument actually sits more in the viola range, if you can believe that. This low string, which I will tune up now, is a Pirastro Olive D string, like a normal cello D string. That's what's on the bottom. But it's the heavy gauge. So honestly, this heavy gauge Olive D string from Pirastro feels exactly the same as like a meaty steel C string. So it doesn't feel any different than normal, which is kind of cool. So let me get that tuned up. I normally tune it still to D, like it's what it's meant to be tuned to. And hopefully, yeah, everything's working okay. But I was just doing a project called Before the 19th, which my friend Georgiana Wade Smith wrote. It's a play, and they did a filmed version, and the live version already had an existing score, but it was all music that they could license to do live, but they couldn't use for a filmed version of the play. So that's where they asked me to come in and kind of replace the score with original music. And it was in the key of C minor. So I'm actually going to tune this up to how I had it tuned, because it's kind of interesting to hear the difference. So, oh boy, every single string is completely off. Wonderful. These are gut strings, so they're going to be slipping and sliding in and out of pitch. But you can kind of hear one of the reasons why I designated this cello for Indian music is because I am able to get, with a little bit of modification, some twangy twang out of it. Actually, okay, we'll do this tuning first. So one of the things that I love about gut strings is that it's really easy to do cross tuning, alternate tunings, scordatura tunings. The gut strings just handle being tuned to different pitches better. I feel like with steel strings, oh man, these pegs are awful. Someday I'm going to get these pegs replaced because they just really are brutal on the hands. I think I'll probably get those geared pegs for this cello in the future if I continue playing this cello. But anyway, so gut strings just handle cross tuning better. The tone and response stays more intact, and you get a wider sweep of pitches that you could tune that string to. Where I feel like with anytime you do cross tunings or alternate tunings with steel strings, those steel strings are dialed in and manufactured to be perfect at that one exact tension or pitch. And as soon as you try to do a lower pitch, for like if you tune your A string down to a G to do scordatura style playing, C, G, D, G, suddenly the string is kind of like loose and weak, and it's it doesn't hold up, and there's a limit to what you can do with that string. You can't push into it with your bow. The response is just all over the place. But with gut strings, they do a much better job of, and I can see why there would be alternate tunings, because it's something that just sounds better and plays better on these strings, as far as like older pieces having alternate tunings. So if you're the type of player that does tons of cross tuning, someday you should check out gut strings and give them a try on your setup. Okay, so this is kind of a little closer. This actually is like a Sarangi style tuning, and I call this cello the Sarangicello because I was using it for Indian classical music. And so with Indian classical, you would have Sa, which is the Do. In this case, I've got it tuned to C. And then you'd have, as that's your top string, Sa or Do. Then you would have Sol or Pa underneath it. And in this case, this is a special tuning where I actually have two strings tuned to Pa or Sol. So both my middle strings are tuned right now both to G. And then my low string is Sa again, or Do. So you got an Indian solfege would be Sa, Pa, Pa, Sa. and then in solfege, Western solfege, it would be do, so, do. Which is a really, really nice tuning. And someday I'm going to relearn some ragas in this tuning and just see. This is a more relaxed, like looser tuning on the Sarangicello. It's tuned down to C, so all the strings are actually kind of under their tension. Let's walk through what we have. We've got the olive heavy gauge D string tuned a whole step lower to C, which would be the same low C string as a viola. So right now my low two strings, or three strings really, low C and low G are the same low two strings as a viola. And that's one of the things I liked about this tuning on the low end, is that both of these strings are, gut strings are thick enough to feel like a regular C and G string if you're using a steel string, but it's an octave higher. So my lowest note that I'm going to get out of this instrument is, when I'm tuned down even, is the low C of a viola. You can see it has a very particular sound. Now the bridge is pretty low, because normally when this low string is tuned up a whole step to D, it's pretty high tension. And so if I have the bridge any higher, it would be too much. And you know, if I was playing with C, I don't have my, here's one. If I was playing with this cello at C for a long period of time, what I would do is I make these little leather riser pads. So I don't even know if you can see that, it's so small, but I would be putting a leather riser pad underneath the string on the bridge to give it extra height. So it's just a riser pad to get that string up higher, which would give it more tension and give it the playability that you would really want from the string. So this next string, the G string, I pretty much always keep it at G. And this is so the low C or D string is covered gut. It's wound gut. With the olive string, it's a sheep gut core with aluminum winding. Now with this G string here, this is from Toro, and Toro gut strings I find them to be really dark, and they have a smooth feeling for the most part. You know, there's a little bit of texture there, like you're going to always get a little bit of texture with a plain gut string from a traditional maker, unless it's Pirastro's like plain gut A string. Those are really smooth, but that texture of the string is part of the tone. It creates all of that complex sound on the surface. So this is a custom gauge that I ordered, and that's one of the best things about gut strings, is that you can customize to the 0.100 millimeter what gauge you want. So if you want a 1.22 millimeter A string, go ahead and get it. You know, it's that kind of thing. So this, I can't remember off the top of the dome, because I ordered this string a few years ago, actually. But I essentially calculated the tension for an ideal A string tension that I liked with gut strings, and then calculated that same tension for a whole step lower, so that I would get the tension I want, but instead of an A string, it's a G string. So it would be like if I always played in scordatura tuning for a normal cello where it was C, G, D, G on top. With gut strings, you can get, if you want, a perfect tensioned top string, so that when you're in that tuning, like if you wanted to play a whole concert in that tuning, you could just have that top string be perfectly dialed in to do your concert at that tuning. So that's what I have here, because this always lives at G. I never change this so far. But the low string, sometimes it's D, sometimes it's C. So we're going to slowly bring this up to pitch. Now, the next string, it right now is doubled G, which creates a really cool sound. And there's one tune where I can't even remember, it's been so long, which tune it is, and some of these, I might even, stop the live stream halfway through the practice session, because it might get a little brutal here trying to remember all this stuff. Oh yeah, alright, so there's a tune called Diaspora. I don't even know if we're going to play it. No, I don't think we're going to play it. So, I'll just give a little taste. And normally I don't play it in this tuning, so it's easy to mess this up. So it gets a really cool sound, especially with the rest of the group playing. You have it sounds like there's two different instruments playing. It gets kind of hard to play up here, unless you're just doing thumb stuff, and that I don't have the calluses right now to be able to do that. I'm still rebuilding my calluses. It makes it fun for doing like call and response with yourself. It creates this cool effect. It's also a nice way for all y'all gut stringers or people interested in gut strings to hear a little bit of the difference between a plain gut string and a wound gut string on the same instrument tuned to the same pitch. So let's just hear that a tiny bit. That's a plain gut string. Now here's wound gut, a Eudoxa A string from Pure Astro, tuned to the same pitch. So you can hear how smooth it sounds. And then here's the plain gut. So there's a lot of texture there. You can hear how the plain gut string shoots forward a little bit more. It's got bite, it's got the surface texture. But then the plain gut, it's a little more, or the wound gut is smoother and it's a little more in the instrument versus the plain gut kind of shooting its sound out. And keep this in mind, I'd like to do a lot of videos on this subject matter with steel versus gut and all that whole series, but with anything that's wound with a metal, it's already by default going to be a smoother and kind of more dull sound than a plain gut string. So hopefully that's like an interesting little comparison for you to be able to hear. There'll be more stuff like that to come. So we've got our medium gauge Eudoxa A string. It's tuned down to D or G right now. And this string is ready to die. I mean, the winding is already separated. It's been on here forever. And I can't believe it's still playing. I think partly because the tension is so very low on this instrument, the way I've set it up. So it's not like super stressed out, and even though the winding is separated, it's still playable. So that is, you hear the little twang. So that is I think this one's from Gamut. Dan Larson I think he's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I think. Gamut strings. This is a very smooth piccolo cello high E string. Keep in mind with piccolo cello, which I mean is just a ridiculous name if you unpack that. With a 5-string cello that's a little bit smaller, usually with body size, it's like 7/8 size cello with 5 strings, a top E string. That the tuning schemes were, like I said, with gut strings, more flexible and easier to be more flexible with your tuning. So there are plenty of examples in history documented where players were playing 5-string cellos with a high D instead of a high E string. I normally tune this to D, so I got a gauge of that piccolo cello top string. Instead of getting it tensioned for E, I got it tensioned for D. And now it is also tuned down a whole step. So I will say that trying to control the pitch because the tension is so low on this cello, the strings are pretty low, the bridge is low at the nut, it's extremely close, so I get twang. I really have to be careful. I can't push it super hard when it's tuned down. It's only when it's up to D that I can actually have a shot of laying into the strings and stuff like that. So pitch is harder to control, and the digging into the bow, you can't really do it. You can overpower this, especially with this bow, overpower the string super easy. But it sounds cool for, ye medieval music. Very drowny. Anyway, I haven't really explored the instrument as much in this tuning. It's something I want to do further, and I need to get more top strings anyway, so I probably would get a extra thick gauge of that top string. I mean, you can just order whatever gauge you want of plain gut strings. That's the cool part about it. So I would just figure out what tension I want and then order that. To have a slightly heavier gauge for playing when I'm tuned down to C. If I wanted to do a whole project like I just did exclusively in this tuning, I would do that. Because the thinner strings are going to sound a little more reedy and nasal, or kind of a little bit piercing sometimes. I mean, it's not always the most pleasant sound for such a thin string because we're across a very long scale length for such a pitch. If it was a shorter scale length, like same string on a viola or a tenor viola da gamba, you know, your string length is shorter, so you need to get the same lower pitch, you need a thicker string at a shorter scale length. So that thicker string is going to offset, you know, like these do. It doesn't sound as piercing to the ear as a higher, thin, long scale string like this is going to. Hopefully this stuff is making sense. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but just trying to drop little nougats, little gut string nougats for you to munch upon. Because I think setup stuff is really fun, obviously. So let's get this tuned up to where I actually need it. And I'm a little afraid that this A string, Udoc's A string might break. And if my top string breaks, I'm screwed. So let's do this careful. Start with the low strings. You can hear how much louder that string is. It's got a little bit of a funny buzz that it normally doesn't. Not the buzz I want. So let's just double check. All right. Ooh, I've got a foam piece. Where is that foam piece? Where are you? I'm gonna find it. And it's important in this case. Sorry for all the swallowing sounds you probably just heard. Getting a little parched. It's somewhere. Where are you? You can hear my string detuning a little bit. Come on now. Where are you? I hope I can find it and not get twisted up in all my cables. I've just kind of changed. Oh, my little microphone keeps falling away from me. I want to get a lav mic instead of this snare mic. It's not what I really wanted to use. But the cello is about 5,000 times louder than the voice. So I gotta have something. I'm sure this is extremely entertaining. I'm pretty good at hiding things from myself. Anyone else? Okay, well, we're gonna have to use something else until I find that at a later date. So I will use some, oh, maybe it's over here. Use some of the rags if I can't find it. Here it is. All right. Whew. About to lose it. Okay. So I got this piece of foam here, and normally that just lives when this instrument is in the case, because I've had so many times where, oh boy, I've had so many times where the bridge has slipped on this cello because it's just such a slippery top, and I'm always putting it under these weird strains, and this bridge actually moved quite a bit, so I hope it doesn't snap because that's freaking super scary. So what am I doing? I'm trying to make sure that the bridge feet stay flat on the belly of the cello. So I'm gently, emphasis on gently, just pushing back towards the tailpiece until the feet are flush, flat against the table, which is the top of the cello. Now, on a really well-made bridge, it should exactly fit the top of the instrument. In this case, this is not an extremely well-made bridge. It's got those little feet that can just change their angle to magically fit the top of the instrument, and the top of this instrument is super slippery, so this bridge just goes flying sometimes. And all right, so now the bridge is straight, and it means our string is out of tune. So we might not even get to any practicing on this live stream. It might just be setup, talk, and tuning. Okay, now something with gut strings that I do is I will take my thumbs on either side of the bridge and very gently push up and then set the string back down. What I'm trying to do is just clear the bridge, just barely, and put it back down. And that way, if there's if the winding of the string is kind of got caught on the bridge and snagged, you can get the string up and reset it on the bridge, so that the winding is where it should be, everything sounds right, you're not stressing out the winding or the string. Same thing can go with the plain gut strings too, but it's a bigger issue with the winding strings. Because sometimes your winding will start to separate at the bridge, and it's almost like the bridge is like cutting into the winding and it got dragged and part of it's left behind, and your string will die sooner because of that. So sometimes I also, with certain strings, will pull up the string above the nut, partly as a way you can tune your gut string to get it to pull your pitch up, and also just make sure that, same thing, that the string hasn't gotten caught on the nut up here and you're kind of pulling the winding up. Okay, let's get our top string up. So one thing I'm doing also is I'm just bracing my thumb right under the string as I pull it up to pitch to help prevent the bridge from pulling back towards the fingerboard, to help try and keep my bridge in place. And with this D string, I'm always trying to get that twang if I can. So sometimes I'll reset it a few times till I get the proper twang. You hear that's kind of nice and resonant. So we got the outsides tuned. Now let's get this G back up to pitch. Same thing, you can go the opposite way. You can pull down on your string above the nut, and that's going to loosen the string. You can also pull forward a little bit behind the bridge to get it lower in pitch. Kind of like fine tuning. And what was I going to say? The pegs on my regular standard cello are much smoother than these pegs. So sometimes it's anything to not have to use the peg if I can. Alright, that's out of tune. So did you hear how much I pulled up the pitch by going wow on the back side of the bridge here? Between the bridge and the tailpiece, I just go boop and give a little press with my thumb. And there you can see where the foam is sitting. I didn't explain the exactly what's going on here. So I said that the bridge slips out on this cello a lot, but why I have the foam there is because when the bridge slips out, the tailpiece will slam against the top of your instrument. And we don't want that, because that really can do some damage. I've had that happen 1 or 2 times. And it's super scary, it's super loud, and it damages the top of your instrument. So when I store this instrument, just as a precaution, I put the foam there. And when I'm doing big tune-ups, which I have to do a lot with this instrument, I will put the foam there too, just in case it slips while I'm tuning, and then I don't have to worry about it. Luthiers will do similar things when they're doing bridge work. They'll have some sort of towel or something like a foam there. There we go. You can hear my D string, the low D string, activating my high D string, which is part of the sound of this instrument. Alright, here we go. I hope this string doesn't break. Well, there we go. That's what I was afraid of. It wasn't even the... Funny enough, I was tuning the Eudoxa A string, and it wasn't the Eudoxa A string that broke. It was the top D string. But this, I mean, I've used this D string for years, and somehow it kept hanging on. So I will have to retie this knot, which I haven't even had to make a loop in a minute. But you can see I should have enough string length to be able to save this same string. But I have a leather washer that I made, so I can reuse this. A little leather washer to go between the knot, and then this is a felt washer from a Eudoxa A string. And so leather washer, knot, leather washer, felt washer up against the tailpiece. That's to help save the life of the string, and I think that's a big reason why some of my D strings and A strings on my, and this high D string can last for so long. It's I've had D strings in the past, even Eudoxa D strings, that have popped. The knot pops off under the tailpiece. So, all right, I think we're looking okay. This wasn't part of my original plan, but I've got enough extra length on this top string where I think that we're okay. So I just gotta make a new knot. And then the string is so broken in that hopefully it should not be an issue. But it's why I have to do this ahead of the concert here, because I don't want that happening right before I get up on stage. Okay. Now this Eudoxa string, let's get this a little closer to pitch toe. Just hold the bridge at a proper tension here. Just back to G. Okay, everything else is alright. So I didn't even get a chance to talk about what my normal tuning is. We were getting there. But my normal tuning is D, G, A, D. And the cool thing about that is it's actually the same tuning as how I tune how you tune the pipa lute. And the pipa is a Chinese lute, 4 strings that I play. It goes back about 2,000 years, and it's like this is a lower pitched version. Boy, excuse me, a lower pitched version of that tuning. And the pipa, normally it's tuned A, D, E, A. So that the low A of the bass staff, inside the staff, middle D of the staff, a whole step up E, and then the top line of the bass staff. So you get fourth, second, fourth, which is a really, really cool tuning. As far as 4-string instruments goes, or 4 to 6-string instruments, there's no other instrument that I know of that tunes like that. I think it's a really cool tuning. So this cello, I ended up setting up in that structure. From D to G as a fourth, from G to A as a second, a whole step, and then from A to D is another fourth. It's really interesting. It creates some really cool chord voicing potential. But I gotta make a knot now. This video is taking a turn. But hopefully y'all are learning something, and if you're a super string nerd like myself, hopefully you find some of this stuff interesting, and maybe this is enough to sway you one way or the other into trying gut strings or not. You do have you do have to take more time with your instrument. It's just more intensive with your instrument care when you play on gut. But I don't mind that, extra time with your best friend kind of thing. All right, so that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully I do a good knot. It's been a minute because I specifically forced myself to play on a steel string setup on my regular cello for the last year to kind of take a break. The house that we're in right now is very, very dry, and I just do not have a good humidifier solution yet. And so it was just so stressful on the strings, the gut strings, to be in this super dry house. So I wanted to give my cello and myself a break, and I didn't want to be burning through a whole bunch of gut strings all the time. So, here we go. Gonna make a little loop. Kind of like a little pretzel loop, loop-de-doop. Oh yeah, so then I got my little loop going. And then I gotta burn off all this crap here. Which is gonna smell just awesome. It's like burnt flesh here. That's what it is, essentially. All right, so we got our little barbecue smells going on. Whew. All right, let me just get some of that off. And you know, for me, I don't, I'm not stringing this through, I'm not looping the string through this loop like you normally would. At least that's one of the ways that I really like to loop the string through. So we've got, this is such a thin string too. You could do a double, the string bent back on itself sort of knot for this, for a thin string, but it's still kind of frayed here. I might just end up double knotting this because it's kind of frayed. But we got our loop, and then, you know, if I was going through the tail piece and then through the loop, then it is kind of looped around the bit of your tailpiece, and then the string length goes up. But I don't need to do that, so I'm just gonna actually double knot this, because I put it through my leather and felt washer, and then it's just sitting right in the underneath the tailpiece. It's not looping through. So we're looping the loop through the loop to let the knot around the knot. Because this doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be thick enough that it's not going to pop through my leather washer and then the felt washer. So there we go. No one's going to see that anyway. But the knot I had tied before that was a real nice looking one. Maybe I'll try to show a close up on that. It's kind of so small, hard to see. Well, this is going to be a really long video. Longer than I was planning. But here we go, joys of gut. All right. I think that will be just fine. Starting to feel like Bob Ross or something over here. Okay, so let me get this closer to the camera. You can see that we've got this just horrendous, doesn't need to be pretty, just functional group of knots over here. And then my leather washer sits up against the knot so that it doesn't slip through this felt washer. And then that's a bunch of really nice padding while it sits underneath the tailpiece and gets pulled on so that it's not stressing out the knot so much. And here is my old knot loop. So that's what you would be, if the camera's picking this up okay, I don't even know. That's what you'd be looping the string back through. You know, you would want that loop so that if you wanted to loop the string back through it. Oh, well, there goes my D string. This has turned into quite a disastrous event. I'm gonna have to play a one-string cello. Well, that is no good, because that string I cannot fix. But maybe I have a D string that I can put on for the meantime. I'll have to look through my catalog. For those of you checking in at home, this just happened. I don't know if you heard that sound in the background. At the nut, my instrument. But it's okay. I've played on this string for years, this low D string. So it looks like I just got to put in an order for some new strings. It's just time. These strings have been through tons and tons of recording. It's just unfortunate that it's happening 3 days before I need to play. So we'll have to find a new D string to put on. Oi, oi, oi. Here you can see the knot that Purastro made, and then I've got my leather washer there. And the kind of cool thing about these leather washers is once you have it, you can just pull it off that string and use it on the next one. And we have to figure out what that next one's going to be. Okay, so taking the top of the string, this little curly Q, that's going to go up on the peg, and I'm going to pull that through. I don't need that low D string too much for notes that I'm going to play in this concert, but as you heard, it does affect the resonance and the sympathetic vibrations of the other strings, and the tension, of course. Okay, so just kind of pre-pulling this a little bit. And one thing I like to do with a string like this is I put my finger on this back side of the felt and the knot, and I'm just pre-bending the string here so that it learns the shape of the bend. So that it doesn't, sometimes if you don't do something like this, you have the potential of the string end slowly moving towards the hole and then popping through the hole as you're tuning up. Nobody wants that. So I'm teaching it how to bend in the way that it's going to need to bend before we put a whole bunch of tension on it. So looks like Daddy needs some new strings here. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna get it in the peg, and then so that it's stable, and then I'm going to put the graphite on there on the nut and the bridge in order to get the right lubrication. This one is kind of hard to reach and it's a pain in the butt, so I might have to talk to myself for a little bit. It's so twisted from being, it's so curled from being on the peg for years that I'm having to straighten it out in order to even get it on the peg. Jeez, the hole. Come on now. Here we go. Trying to just go and get in the hole. You know what I'm saying? Well, won't you get in there? It's whoever made this cello did such a bad job of placing this peg. It's so high up. You know, the scroll is just in the way of what I'm trying to do here. I might, come on, there we go, there we go. Oh, yeah. No, sometimes this one wants to slip back out. Ugh. Especially because the holes in the peg are super huge, and this is a very thin string, so it's easy for it to slip back out. Here we go. Go through, go through, go through. Oh, it's just barely through. Come on. If I don't get it through enough, it's just going to slip out once I start tensioning it. I need tweezers, where I have some. Well, well, well. So if I'm not going to get any practicing in this session, please. Can't find them. Hope y'all's day is going better than mine is going right now. This might just end up becoming a setup madness video. There we go. Okay. We gotta hold on to what we've got. Yep. Okay. So, trying to get the little squiggly cue. Nope, no, stay in. To go actually under the part of the string that is going to wrap around the peg to hold it in place. It's so trained from being on the peg all this time that it's kind of not really cooperating with me here. You know, oh, I actually, you know what? I do have some spare D strings that are beef jerky boys I can put on there. Sheep jerky. They're really old though. Like, don't even strings that aren't in production anymore. So that would be kind of fun. We could talk about that. But definitely really like the what's it called? The olive heavy gauge D string just works so good for this cello. I wouldn't want it on my normal cello. It'd be way overkill, but on this cello it works awesome. Come on. We're gonna get this, folks. It's gonna happen. Here we go. Come on. Okay. Let's work with that. If it cooperates. Yes. There we go. Okay. Woo! Man, that took so long. Okay. You know, I think this has happened a number of times with this same string. And that's kind of a cool thing with the gut strings. If they break at the knot, you can save them. You can still use the string. But as you saw, when it breaks at the nut, you're screwed. You just you can't do anything with it after that point. All right, let's get some of this graphite on the bridge and on the nut before we start cranking. Now, I don't know, we'll see how this whole string holds up. Hopefully it's fine, because this is more important than the low D string for this concert. Or gig or whatever. Okay. Where are we at? Where are we at? Okay. We got an octave to go. You know, maybe I'll just do an all G's setup. Nothing but G's. That'll be the album title. Hey, we're back up to C. Whoa, almost slipped. Whew, jeez. So far, pre-bending worked. Little peg slip. And my end pin has started coming out. What is going on with this thing today? Jeez. Okay, I got a little sticky. Give me that twang. Did you hear that? That little, that was the bridge. The string had pulled the bridge towards the fingerboard, and then I pushed the bridge back, and it kind of, you know, catches on the string. That's what I mean. You have to, you're a lot more hands-on with the gut string. All right, we got twang. Oof. I think it sounds fine now. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So... this is something that I'll have to send to Chad. Hey, Chad. And then, you know, Chad, you can see what goes into having to set this thing up just to get it to play right. All right, hopefully these strings don't break. Sometimes on the really thin strings, it's kind of scary to do the lifts. So, like on this top D string, I kind of want to avoid it because I don't want it to snap just like, you know, add to the issue. So, and I have to like fuss around a lot with where this bridge goes because it moves around so much. And as you heard, I was adjusting the nut because on this cello, the nut is not properly glued down, so my nut is floating around, and that's partly how I can adjust it to get the right twang. So now, let me grab all my other gut strings. That's a shame that this D string broke because it's all broken in and pitch stable and stuff, but it was just time to go. So right now, taking off the leather washers. I got 2 of them, and the different leather that I have, different colored dyes. I don't even know. Can you see this? The different dyes and thicknesses affect how stiff these washers are. So I'll use like the stiffest ones on the low heavy strings, and then the, you know, maybe some thinner ones where it's not needed so much on the lighter strings. But check this out. This is maybe you can get a sheet of paper behind it so it's easier to see. This is the winding here where it snapped, and you can kind of see the inner workings of what's going on in the olive strings. So we get the gut core, and maybe it's just too dark to see. Shine the light, shine the light. We've got the sheep gut core, and that is wrapped with a silk layer around it, and then we've got the aluminum winding here. So that's the breakdown of the olive string. That's how the olive and the eudoxa strings are. So this one we'll just retire. Okay. Now, so I forgot I had these strings, but check this out. They don't make these no more. These are the gold label Wondertone strings. Check this out, 27.25 PM. This is a D string. I mean, that's the same PM roughly as like the olive G strings. I think 28 PM is like the light gauge. But actually this is kind of sick because it's totally new string. Well, I mean, unplayed string. So it's going to have to break in, which will suck because I've only got a few days. But look at this nice wrap on the top. That's cool looking. Got this little, you know, perfect for tuning in fifths little gold label. Now this was an old string. This is how it came to me. I mean, just looks beat up. It was in the luthier's storage for a while. Shout out to Ralph Rabin Violins. I'm not even sure if they're still going or if they were kind of trying to retire, but in Madison, Wisconsin. But he gifted me a couple gut strings when he did some repair work and on my cello. So this is actually a fairly smooth winding, but it's closer to it's kind of in between the olive and the eudoxa winding style. So it's like the eudoxa winding in that there's, hopefully the light is catching it so you can kind of see what I mean, but you can see the wrapping of the individual bands, and you can feel it with your nail, just like but it's polished very smooth. Okay, so it feels smooth like the olive, and on the olive strings, you can't really even see barely the. On this one you can because it's so big, but on the normal ones, you can't really see the bands as easy, and it's polished super super smooth. So the olives like have the smoothest sound and the butteriest kind of sound, and they're kind of thick, meaty sound, tone wise. And part of the smooth sound and playing is just how smoothly they polish the winding. Because if you just have a regular gut string and you wind it, it's going to be round wound like a guitar or bass guitar string is round wound. But then they have to polish it smooth to get it to be flat wound style like this. And this one has just a little bit more texture than the olive, but is still very smooth. And the Eudoxa has even a little more texture than this, but a thinner gauge, so it's a much sweeter sound. Let's see if I can find the packaging for my busted Olive D. Because I want to see what gauge it was if I can. Here we go. Alright, so this is kind of cool. Check this out. You know, like certain gut strings at higher tension are not going to last as long. You know, like if you're doing chamber music and concerto stuff and solo music, you know, your gut string is probably under enough tension and getting played out enough that it will not last, you know, more than a year for your D string. That might be 6 months to a year playing time. But this olive heavy gauge D string, which is 27.5 PM, that's the heavy gauge, and this gold tone or a gold label old one is 27.25, so it's almost exactly the same size, just a quarter of a PM off. I installed this D string on my Sarangicello, it says here, in 2018, October of 2018. So I got 3.5 years out of this string, which is pretty crazy. It still sounded awesome all the way up until it broke just a second ago. So I don't play the Sarangicello every single day. It's part of it. But I take care of my strings, and if you do that, these gut strings can last for a lot longer than you'd anticipate. Now, partly I think it also lasted a really nice long time because it's so thick. So the thicker strings are going to just have more longevity and durability than a thinner string. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you are doing gut string setups and, you know, like durability and long-lasting strings is important to you, one thing you might do is, you know, opt for a heavier gauge string, because it's going to last a little longer, be more durable than a thinner string. Okay, so that one's a museum piece now. It's kind of, even though it's a broken string, sometimes I keep these around just as a thickness reference and winding reference and all that kind of stuff, and just for future purposes, comparison. If I no longer need it, I'll chuck it. Hey, this video is going to be super long. Going in some alternate directions here. I never even thought I would be using this string, but so it's kind of cool actually. I'm excited to see what this thing sounds like. And, you know, I know they still have their, what do they call it? Do they call it the gold label still? Pure Astro still does make a gold label string, I think. But this isn't the Wonder Tone version. This is the old OG one. I have no idea how similar or different it is. So if I really like it, it might be one of those things where it makes me want to try the current ones that they have. But I think I looked at the specs once, and the specs seemed totally different. Oh, I got 3 washers on here. Look out. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope this string works out okay. Actually, I might have to widen that out a little bit. So I just got these little sewing whatchamabobbers, and I widen it out. It's tapered, so I can kind of widen it out as much as I need to for that particular string. It's turned into a wildly different video. You guys are getting all my gut string secrets here. Hope that's helpful. Come for the Sarangicello, stay for all the setup secrets. Okay, we got 1 on there. We got 2. Gotta widen all these out, I guess. Well, it's my first time ever doing a little live streamy dingy. I hope you're getting something out of this. I honestly didn't expect that any single person would join this, so I don't even have my computer next to me. But in the future, if I do live streamy dingies, I'm gonna try and get my computer just like right here, so I can go and type back at y'all if you guys leave me some comments, questions, that kind of stuff. I think it'd be fun to do more kind of setup videos and have it be live so that people can actually ask questions and make comments or suggestions. You know, if I'm going to try an experiment, people can pitch in and be like, oh, you should try this, you know, do that with your string instead, etc., etc. And I can look like an old man. Huh? What? What'd you say? There we go. This string looks really nice. I like the winding. Really, really nice color. Dang. Okay. Wish me luck. Sometimes you can get the knot through first. Here we go. Whew. Okay, it fits. Check. Now I'm doing the same thing. I'm pre-bending it. Trying to teach this gut how to sit. This is, you know, I could loop it through, but I kind of found that with this tailpiece has this little ridge here. I'm not crazy about it. It's okay. I prefer it without that little ridge, but it makes less sense for me to loop it around because of that ridge. Well, I guess we lucked out that I actually had a spare string that ended up being almost exactly the same diameter by the same maker, just a different older string that they don't make anymore. Goodness gracious. Oh yeah, I still have all the winding left up here from the old D string. If I can get that out, jeez. You know, most of you are going to be, whoever does watch this, you'll be watching it when it's not a live stream anymore, so you can skip through all this boring stuff if you want, or you can just click off the video. I don't care. That is your journey. I'm on my own little vision quest right now, trying to get this cello in working order so I can actually practice the parts I need to practice. I haven't even got to that part yet. Probably not even going to do that today, because I do have some other stuff to do. Where are we at? I might not even be able to really get this D string quite up to pitch today, and that's okay. As long as it's up to pitch by Wednesday when I leave. Okay. So I think that this, my guess is that this string is going to have a little bit more flexibility than the olive, which wouldn't be the worst thing. The olive, though, there we go. What it did bring is power on the bottom. So yeah, this is going to be a more gentle sound, but I think it's going to work. Let's see. That was so loud. Jeez. Little peg slip. Good morning. Oh, I hope that didn't sound as loud in the microphone as it sounded directly next to my ear. Holy crud. Well, there's a little meme for you. You know, for all you internet kids who want to do that. Little Easter egg. If I can even hear in that ear anymore. That's the loudest peg slip I've ever experienced in my life. That was nuts. You know what? I'm not having very good luck this weekend and this week. Little sneak peek for anyone who watches this before the video comes out in the next few months. The Setup Madness video for Yager Superior medium set. I got the medium, or I got the Superior G and C. Tried to install it this weekend. I had just ordered a medium pack, and they sent me both. Inside the G string packet was actually a Superior C string. So I got two C strings. I got an A, D, C, C. Instead of getting a G string, I got a C string in the packet for the G string. So that was frustrating. And not, you know, it kind of set my weekend off on a really weird foot. Because I was kind of having to second guess myself, and then, you know, I ended up putting the string that was in the G string packet, which is really a C string. I ended up putting that on as my C string because it sounded better than the C string that was in the C string packet. They're both C strings. They looked identical, exact same thickness. They played slightly different, so I just went with the string that was actually in the G string packet because it sounded thicker and a little more powerful than the other C string. So that's getting worked out. The music shop is already contacted Yager to try and get a replacement string. But I forgot how much a pain in the butt this peg is, and that it really slips pretty bad. And that was one of the nice things about having that string all broken in nice, because generally didn't have to touch it too much and deal with the slips. That's another album title, The Slips. or a good gut string band name. Sounds like a UK punk band. Alright. Well, one string up to pitch and then the other one slips. What a turn this day has taken. Bet my sound post has been in 15 different spots over the course of this video. I'm just going to go G and G, I think, for now. You know, this video might even be like a kind of a terrorizing video for certain people. It's like a nightmare. So sorry. I'll have to put a little warning on it. Not for the faint of heart. This is really why I need a custom instrument made for this. This is getting a little ridiculous here. There we go. Don't break on me. Come on. You know what? I like how this D string feels. It doesn't have as much tension as the olive D head gauge. It sounds a little more traditional gut, but it's easier to play. Okay, that was stressful. My hands are pretty sore because, or the palms are pretty sore because the pegs are so beastly on this cello. They just really hurt. They're super hard and they're not cut right. fret at that undertone string. Definitely feels a lower tension. Than the olive string does. But tone-wise, it brings out some nice things. I think it brings out a little bit of mellowness in the upper strings. So it's helping the top D string actually be a little bit less shrieky and more mellow. Ooh, boy. Actually, it's settling in to pitch pretty nice. So I'm gonna have to make sure my humidity in my case is good tonight. Okay. Now, come on, let's get this one up to pitch and then we're done. I'm gonna have to take a nap after this, goodness. Come on. You know what? The tone sounds better of the instrument. It's a little more relaxed with this Wondertone OG vintage, got weird crusty stuff on it string from ages ago. Nicer for sure. Okay, bridge is just kind of keeps getting pulled forward, so I'll have to keep tuning this cello. I'm gonna have to just keep popping it out to tune it up over the next 2 days. There's that whole step in the middle. No, don't do that. So this is a good example of how you can change one peg, one string, and it starts to change the tension on all the other strings, and then suddenly all your pegs start slipping. And I think it's even worse if, on student cellos and cellos like this one where the pegs aren't really properly fit for the instrument. lost my twang, so I might have to, you know, reposition the nut a little bit more. Yeah, so a smoother sound on the top strings with the Wondertone gold label string on bottom. It's kind of funny how you can have almost exactly the same gauge, 27 and a fourth or a quarter PM for this string versus 27 and a half for the olive string. Both are heavy gauges, but this one is more flexible. It feels lower tension. I can feel the string just go side to side. It just relaxes and opens out like you would expect the gut string to, just like this under the bow. And you just, nice and relaxed. I'm going to get it kind of close so you can see. And with the olive string is much stiffer. So this sounds nice. I like it. I prefer it. Just sounds, everything sounds a little bit more relaxed, kind of gut sound versus the, it's nuts how much just one string can change your entire instrument's sound. And you know, this is a good example. It had, with the olive heavy gauge D, the instrument had a little bit more of the edge, gritty, punch forward, aggressive sound, and now it just is kind of relaxed. Cool. Well, this has been an exhausting little experience and not what I expected or was planning, but that's life, right? Yeah, a little smoother sound, a little more relaxed. Oh boy. And I'm just gonna have to really be giving this instrument a little more attention this week, every day, to make sure that this doesn't happen on the day of the show. Okay, one last little bridge check here. Just make sure we're feeling okay. Lost my twang though. There we go. It's got a little bit of a sitar sound, right? That's what we wanted. So that string's gonna need to break in, and it's gonna fall in pitch, so it's okay if it's a tiny bit sharp here. Whoo-wee! That's it for today. I'm done. I need to let this rest, and I need to rest now. If you made it this far, bravo, brava. Whatever your bravo, brava pronoun is. I wish you the best. I hope that you all have a smoother day than I had today. And there'll be more of this kind of stuff, hopefully shorter and to the plan. But I thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I look forward to any comments that you all might have of which string you thought sounded interesting or what you think of this setup. You didn't really get to hear any practice examples, but just the raw sound of the bow to the strings, the open strings. And if you are a gut string warrior, what are some of your secrets to a healthy gut string setup? What are some of the things that you do to your instrument to ensure that you get the most life out of your string and that it sounds the way you want it to sound? I can learn from you. You can learn from me. We can all learn from each other in the comments below and have some conversation and community around this kind of string nerdery. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for joining, and I'll catch you in the future on some other setup video that hopefully goes better than this.